My history with Star Fox is a great one. When it first came out, I was in the 4th grade and the graphics blew me away. Compared to Super Mario World and The Link to the Past, the 3D polygons of Star Fox were revolutionary for a console. Sure, there were games that made the illusion of 3D, but this is the first game to be truly 3D. Plus it had the FX chip, and for a 10-year-old who grew up with the NES, this was a very big deal. Nintendo Power had hyped the game up, and when it came out it was instantly my favorite game. I even teamed up with a couple of friends from school to make a comic book about Star Fox. That's how excited we were. Then Star Fox 2 was announced to be in production. It was announced in issue 69 of Nintendo Power, and that's where I began to count the days until arrival. Nintendo Power was the only source of news that I had at the time, and every so often I would buy GamePro magazine, but I only had the Nintendo Power subscription. So that was 1995 when Star Fox 2 caught my eye, and with the FX2 chip and the screenshots, I was so pumped for this game. Nintendo Power would also mention it in issues 70 and 76, and 76 would be the last time Nintendo formally mentioned Star Fox 2 in their magazine before Star Fox 64 came out. And it's important to note that Star Fox 2 was never officially cancelled by Nintendo during that time, and I pestered my video game rental store every month through 1996, which was the target release date for Star Fox 2, and they all thought that I was crazy. Then the Nintendo 64 came out in September of 1996, and the 3DN and 3D Mario was all I needed to abandon the Super Nintendo. And eventually Star Fox 64 came out, and Star Fox 2 is just a distant memory. That is until emulators became a big thing. NES and SNES emulators were all the rage in the late 90s and early 2000s. If you had a computer that was good enough, you could play tons of games at your discretion. And that's when Star Fox 2 had started getting more light and the legend grew. The drawback at the time was FX games were very touchy and didn't emulate properly. I was aware of Star Fox 2 ROMs in existence, but I didn't care to play it given the glitchiness and the fact that early ROMs were developer builds and incomplete. So again, Star Fox 2 fell off my radar, until the Super Nintendo Classic was announced to have the final game included in its library. So this is its review. Up until this point, I haven't played Star Fox 2, so these are my unmuddled thoughts. Star Fox 2 takes a lot of design elements from the original Star Fox and then builds on them. If you're familiar with the original Star Fox 2 should pose no significant learning curve for you. That being said, if you haven't played the first Star Fox, I highly recommend you do so that Star Fox 2 doesn't feel out of place. Going from a new Star Fox to this Star Fox will definitely skew your appreciation for what Star Fox 2 was trying to accomplish at the time. Nintendo thought of this as well, so you'll need to defeat the first level of Star Fox to unlock this game. First thing you'll notice is that there are several characters to choose from this time instead of just Fox. Each character has its strengths and weaknesses, so you can choose which one works best for you. Once you select your character, the CPU picks another one, but you can change the decision to suit your needs. This means that you can switch between the two on the fly depending on the scenario that you're about to face. The goal of the game is simple: defeat Andross before he destroys your home planet. This has an RTS element, so you can go where the biggest threat is, compared to the original Star Fox where it was just a set path. If you're too damaged, you can go back to the home starship and recharge, but if your pilot dies, you're left with only the other one. You now have a charging attack, which is helpful for taking down bigger enemies. There's no lock-on feature, so you'll have to lead the shot to where the enemy is going. The good news is that enemies are fairly predictable and don't move in ways that would seem unfair, but it is still fairly difficult to get down. There are 3 types of battles. First is the free range battle. These include missiles and Star Wolf, and the missiles are very easy because they're running away from you, but the Star Wolf battle poses the biggest threat because they move much faster and it makes it harder for you to track them, and they also fire back. So if you're new to the game and you encounter a Star Wolf first, it might kill your first pilot out of the game and then you're stuck with just one for the rest of it. You can also repair your shields with power-ups found in these carrier battles. These are similar to the missile Star Wolf battles, but it's more on the rails, and when you finally approach the carrier, you fly inside to destroy the core. These battles aren't very challenging, and they're reminiscent of the space battles in the original Star Fox, but you have more control over your ship. Once you destroy the core, the battle is over, and the carrier is no longer a threat. Then you have the third type of battle, the ground battle. Andross has installed bases on planets to fire missiles from, and you must go to the surface to destroy them. This is where Star Fox 2 really pushes the limits of the Super Nintendo. Your R-Wing is now a chicken walker, and your goal is to flip 2 switches to open doors to the main base. Since you don't have an analog stick, your motion is limited to the D-pad and the shoulder buttons to navigate. And once you've located both of the switches, and the game tells you where to go, you'll walk into the main base and then turn back into an R-Wing and then fly through the base to destroy the core. And then every so often, androids would send out enemies that will seek you out, like this worm thing that's super powerful, but it's easy to take down once you're familiar with them. Overall, Star Fox 2 is a very short game, but it's never the same battle twice, so it has a lot of replayability. Looking back at the grand scheme of things, I can see why Nintendo didn't want to release this game at the time. The leap between 16-bit and 32-bit was huge, and the difference between the Nintendo 64 and the Super Nintendo was so great that I don't think a 3D game would be very effective on the Super Nintendo. If this game had come out earlier, before the PlayStation and Sega Saturn, I think the Star Fox 2 would have changed the landscape of gaming. But I'm glad that they didn't release it during 1996 when the Super Nintendo wasn't the latest Nintendo console on the market. Star Fox 2 probably wouldn't have had that much attention, and it would probably be one of those expensive late-life games today. With that being said, you should play Star Fox 2, if not only because of the historical implications that this game has. It's a new, official Super Nintendo game that was released 25 years after the original console, and that's amazing. I'm glad that I got to play the official release, and I think I'm going to look for somebody to make me a reproduction cart so I can add it to my physical collection. So that about wraps it up. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, please subscribe. I'm Super Nintendo, and I'll see you next time.